So, hello and welcome everybody to a special one-off interview. Today, looking at the true sidereal or constellational astrology. And to assist us on our ongoing investigation into switching from tropical Western astrology to the true sidereal astrology, we are joined today by the wonderful Dr. Dani. Hi, Dani, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. What an honor to be here. A few of my viewers actually pointed you guys out to me, and I reached out to you because I said, "Oh, they're coming into the realm of 13 sign astrology. I want to speak to them. I want to talk to them. I want to see what their experience is, what their struggles are, and help them if I can." And I got such a warm and wonderful response. And these guys are actually going to be on my channel next week, so we'll stay tuned for that. But that's going to be really exciting. It's part of my series called Pulling Back the Curtain, and we have conversations with modern magicians. And I've had the privilege of having a separate reading with each of these individuals here. And let me tell you, they are modern magicians. What they know and what they understand are just quite amazing. So, um, thank you so much for, with open arms, embracing me and bringing me into your community. It's just a treasure to know both of you. So I
Thank
appreciate
you
you
so
guys so
much,
much.
Dani. And likewise, we also feel like you're a modern magician. We're super impressed with your work, the level of integration of the constellational astrology. Besides, we're going to do a short bio in a minute, but I'm super impressed with the book that you wrote. It's super clear. It speaks the same language that we've been talking about. I'm going to give it a plug because I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, just to say that we're super happy that we're meeting other tribes that have been doing some work in the realignment, because what we feel that when we switch from the Gregorian to the time that we're following of the 13 moons, and from the Western astrology to the real astrology, the constellational astrology, we get realigned and our DNA and our life switches to something that makes sense, is more coherent. So thank you for doing this with us, and we hope that this is going to help lots of people too.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And what you said, you can't gloss over that. The idea that you go from this calendar construct, which is tropical astrology, the four seasons, the 12 signs, the perfect symmetry, when you go from that, which has shifted because the real sky moves very slowly over time, once you tap into the actual real sky, you're right. Something alchemical happens in your brain, in the way you see yourself, in the way you see the world, in the way you see other people. It's incredible. My clinical practice shifted. My connection to my husband, to my family, to my friends, to my clients, it all shifted in a way that was so much more compassionate and more connected. And I think the synergy with the 13 moons, with what you guys are doing, is also quite magical.
Yeah.
So
So Dani, should we do a short bio on how you got to sidereal astrology? Like, we know you're a doctor, physician, and how did you get to this?
how did I even get into astrology, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a doctor. What are you doing dabbling in the esoteric arts? Well, one of the things that really helped me come out was that I learned that you actually had to study astrology in order to get into medical school prior to 1650. So when I learned that, I was like, oh, physician astrologers, they were actually a thing for many, many centuries. And so for me, I was like, all right, that seems okay. And so every time I would crack open a book on astrology, and this was for years, I would put it down because something just didn't click with me, until I said, all right, I'm finally going to do this. This was COVID. I said, I have a lot of time. Let me go ahead and just really, really dive into this material. And then I realized on my birthday that it was not aligned. I was told I was a Leo sun, August 4th. And when I took the night sky app and I pointed it at the sun, because you can do that with the computer screen, even if you're indoors, you can point it straight up. It was sitting in the square in the constellation of Cancer. And I said, oh my God, wait, is this thing broken? Like, do I have the right date? Do I have the right center? What's happening here? And then I went down the rabbit hole and I found Athen Comenti. You guys found him too.
Yes.
And he was my light in the dark for a year because nobody else was doing it. I found Ike Rodriguez with Sidereal Revolution and signed up for a mentorship with him. We dove deep for about 3 months, just getting into charts and getting into the 13th sign and what that means. And from there on out, I knew that every time it would be a pattern almost that would go with the cycles, where I'd have like a transformation and then a realization. And every time I would get these amazing downloads, I didn't even know what they were called at the time. I would just sit in meditation, be like, oh, I'm like, I have to teach this. I have to put this out the other end and bring it together for people and give them what I didn't have when I was learning. And so that's the whole reason why I developed my curriculum. That's why I started, my YouTube channel, just to spread awareness, to spread knowledge. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that you'll find too in clinical practice, if you work with people in a healing basis, is you tend to repeat yourself over and over and over and over. So, I take care of women, I deliver babies, and all the time it's like, girl, you need to eat well, you need to sleep well, you need to pray, you need self-reflection, you need to take time for yourself. I would say it over and over and over. And I thought to myself, what if I could say it once or twice to thousands? What would the impact be?
Yeah.
And ever since I've started my channel and do the teachings as well as the astrology, I get the most tremendous feedback. And I can only imagine the feedback that I don't get, the people that hopefully that I'm touching, that I'm opening their hearts and their minds, and they're going on their own individual journey. So that's the whole reason or how I got into it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to study astrology on top of that was because what you'll notice in when you work with humans, especially in collective groups of humans, is they go through cycles as well. And it follows the moon. It follows Mercury. It follows the daily diurnal cycles as well. So astronomy is a big part of what I do. And I think if you're going to practice astrology, study of the stars, you should be using the stars. It just makes sense to me. So,
which is the way it used to be hundreds of years ago. You needed to know astronomy, astrology, medicine, everything. You need to understand everything in a holistic manner so that you knew what was going on. But now the science has divided and compartmentalized so much. Like you need to specialize in this and specialize in that, and then you end up completely disconnected. And I understand where you're coming from, because I also come from a scientific background, and it was also around the same time of 2020 that I was like, I'm ready to study astrology, and I went fully into it as well. And so it was like the calling from the stars. Okay, this is the moment to get activated. And we're super excited to be switching to the real one, because I did the same. When I wanted to go into astrology, I was like, but why does it look different? Why am I studying this if it's that? And I could never find the answer until now, that I'm using Stellarium and Google Earth and lots of other things that show me where we are. When I look at the sky, it matches. So super excited. You have any questions?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of questions that perhaps I think you're going to cover in a little presentation you're going to give in a minute, Dani. But certainly, from my perspective, looking at the astrology, if we make the switch, we're kind of reflecting what is in the sky above us, but then it also asks, at least for me anyway, the question, well, how did we end up so off-piste, so to speak? I think it's around 24 degrees difference, right? And I remember when we spoke to you before, you kind of said something along the lines of that Western astrology kind of actually places us into the future more than we need to be. And that kind of really got me thinking, a lot of our work is around the nature of time and where in time are we exactly, if indeed time even exists. And so it kind of brought up all of these questions. And also at the same time, having worked with the fixed star constellational system of the stellar nations and realizing that this corresponded in some way to our celestial ancestors through our DNA, was like, oh, that's interesting. And so it's kind of like putting the jigsaw puzzle together. And then there was like, well, this question about the astrology, and because we've been using eclipses and solstices to put intentions, and then not really seeing them manifest into the 3D. Sometimes they would manifest as an energetic principle or as a concept, but it often felt like there was something that would block the bigger intentions on the solstices and equinoxes. And then we started working with more with the Black Moon Lilith and more working more with the Cazimis. And we started to have, I would suggest, more of a positive response. And I was like, is it just because the planets are in a conjunction regardless of where they are in the sky, and we're feeling the effects of that? or, you know, are they coming through a different filter to what the Western astrologers are telling us? And if so, is that because they're somewhere else in the sky? So all of these questions started to come up around about a year or so ago, in fact. And we said to our audience, oh, we're interested in going further into the 13 sign astrology. We did a piece with Afan, actually. He was our first port of call also. And then just recently we got connected to you because we suddenly had another surge of like, hey, I think we need to go back to this because it's like I'm tired of being this constantly being Scorpio. I'm just like, I've had so many deaths. Like, can I just like stop dying, please? And so it was kind of almost felt a bit like a relief when you did the readings for us. It's like, okay, that feels a little more kind of smooth sailing. And, you know, it kind of got us thinking about many things as in terms of our personal apprehension of reality, but also the collective nature. And if, as you say, perhaps we're being guided to project our actions more into the future, then that's really just taking us always away from the present moment. And if the present moment is the only thing that exists, then we are existing in some sort of parallel reality that we would call the future. So I find all of this incredibly interesting from the point of view of the Mayan 1320 calendar and how all of this integrates. So yeah, looking forward to what you're going to share with us.
Yeah, that is interesting because I you know, a lot of people will ask me, well, tropical astrology is super accurate. I'm like, well, kind of, and I do address that in my PowerPoint a little bit, the difference and why we are still influenced by it. And I would say, you know, there's this old saying that you know, millionaires use astrology and billionaires use the stars.
Yes.
Right. But I think you could even clarify that a little bit more, is that millionaires use tropical astrology and billionaires use the sky.
Yeah.
So these are the people that you don't know that are running the world.
Yep.
That you don't see on TV. Mm-hmm. They're the actual stars of this realm, and they are using the actual sky. And I feel as though, and this is just my opinion, you know, people can think differently, and that's totally cool. I'm not trying to convince anybody or fight anybody, but the way that it kind of plays out for me is that the tropical works because the aspects are the same, so conjunctions are the same, the moon phases are the same. Yeah. So when you're using the planetary energy, you're still able to get somewhat of an accurate reading. But when we think about our sun sign, it's only a small part of your actual astrology. You're all the signs all the time. So you have Aries in your life, you have Taurus in your life, you have all of these constellations in your life, and they represent the bigger archetypes that are part of our own monad or soul. And these are all, you know, broken down. And the one that's left out in the tropical astrology is that 13th sign. It's Ophicus, which represents ascension, breaking the pattern, getting out of the karmic cycle, evolving. And when you leave that out, you're sort of thrust back into that karmic wheel kind of over and over and over. And a lot of us are coming back going, no more. This is it. I'm done with the looping. I know this is my last lifetime, or at least the last one where I'm forced to come here. Right. Like maybe I'll choose next time, but I get to choose next time. And I get to be aware of that choice.
I like to share with you, Dani, well, and with everybody, that about a whole Solkin ago, about 9 months ago, we started the work with the serpents, trying to balance the energy of the serpents and integrate in the serpent's constellation rather than Ophicus, the serpent, because it's the one that the tail connects to the galactic center. And so as part of the Stellar Nations mythology, it is the one that brings the life force for all of us, and it's so key to integrate it. And then went into why is it hidden, why is it not included, and da, da, da. And so we did a whole work of 9 months until this point where we're like, okay, we've completed this, now it's time to reintegrate it, as we were doing the serpent wave spell again. So the amount of synchronicities that have led us to this point are amazing. So maybe we can go into the presentation.
And also what you say, Dani, is so interesting, you know, because what we've perceived looking at the 1260 calendar as opposed to the 1320 is it's essentially like a circuit breaker was put in between the 12 and the 13. So we never get to go to the point of ascension or transcendence. We just loop back into the cycle again, whether it's as a reincarnation, we can say, but also in our activities, we kind of, it's, I guess, a bit like a form of coercion or manipulation because we don't know any difference. We just kind of loop on the 12 all the time. And so it often felt like some things wouldn't come to completion unless we were doing them for the system. And then it would always complete because you're working to that cycle. But if you try to break out of that into the 1320, it's actually very, very hard because you're actually going against the flow of most of society. So
Right.
everything is geared up for a 1260 Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 5 days at work, two off, etc., etc., none of which has any correlation to being in the flow of the 13. And so it's fascinating that not just with the Mayan calendar, but also with the Western, with the astrology and how the Western has distorted it. Again, we see almost the same thing with the Western astrology and the 1260 calendar. They almost feel like they go hand in hand. And perhaps the 1320, a Zolkin from the Mayans, and the 13 sign zodiac is more of a true representation. So that's, I guess, where our investigations have led us up to this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of this presentation will blow your mind. And remember, every slide, I can probably do another hour presentation on each one of these slides. This was just an introduction that I created for a local yoga studio that wanted to learn about 13 sign astrology. So I gave them my overview. This is sort of like the 30-minute elevator talk about why you should use it. So I will share my screen and I will show you guys.
Yeah, that was the first question. Why use sidereal? What are the key components?
So the stars within us. Okay. So let me go back to the beginning of this. So this is it here. Introduction to the real sky. So the stars within us. So you can see, I'll take you guys. Hi, video.
Ophicus on the right. Yeah.
Yep. So, and then just to introduce me, I do many things other than just astrology. I am also a writer, a musician, a philosopher, a polymath, a decoder, a mystic. I'm certified in practicing sidereal astrologer and teaching it. Venus astrology is my expertise and specialty. I absolutely love following Venus cycles, and so I'm looking forward to working with you guys with this Mayan calendar because it's numerology and its celestial cycles tap in very nicely to the Mayan calendar. I am a Cancer sun, a Capricorn moon, and Taurus rising in the constellational sky, and I was a former Leo sun and tropical astrologer. So when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I create ripples in the space-time continuum that alter future realities in the third dimension.
Wow.
There's a lot of things we do, right? So typically by the time I'm done with this, you'll understand the difference between the tropical zodiac and the actual constellation and why it matters. And then how you see your sun sign might shift when we look at where the sun is. You'll also learn how and why the zodiac was disconnected from the stars and how that impacted our relationship with the cosmos. And then you'll meet the missing 13th constellation, Ophicus, and discover why its return is so important right now. The Mayans were actually tracking a very important alignment that we are in right now, which is why their calendar ended and why we're into a new one. And we'll discover that new spiral path through the zodiac, the clockwise journey, the cosmic healer's journey, the one who knows that they're on their last incarnation. This is the journey of the soul. And so you'll leave with a deeper sense of your own cosmic map and a new way to look up at the sky so that you can remember who you are. So for anybody that has any constellational tattoos,
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. You probably have something else in that constellation, or that constellation is in a place that is very important for you. So I'm so sorry if you thought this was your sun sign. Most of the time it changes unless you were born in the early part of a very large constellation.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So this is what astrology means to me. This is why I connect with it. This is why I use it. To me, it's a living language that connects the heavens and the earth. Mm-hmm. It's a mirror of the soul that's encoded in light, rhythm, and resonance. It's a cosmic timekeeping system that maps cycles within cycles. And it also plays out a sacred geometry of consciousness that's unfolding through the body of the sky. It's a multidimensional tool for remembering who we are, who you are, and why you came to be here. It's an ancient system of observation aligned with the actual movement of the actual stars and planets. It's a bridge between myth and mathematics, spirit and structure. And it's a story the universe is telling through us in every breath, in every birth, and in every return. So it's one sacred science. Astrology and astronomy, they're one sacred science. They're separated from our point of view, but they're actually one. And it was the beginning of all sciences: navigation, mathematics, medicine, agriculture, all of it, just to name a few, just by observing the sky and observing what people do and observing the relationships between things. So there's a couple of critics for astrology in general, not to mention 13 sign astrology. So the scientists, the astronomers, the physicists, they literally laugh at you. And then there's the devoted that are, into the 4 books of the Bible instead of the 4 cardinal directions of the zodiac, or the those that are committed to that life path. They pray for your soul. So they're a little bit nicer than the scientists. The scientists typically only believe in math and numbers. And so they just laugh at you. Yeah. And then there's tropical astrologers, which I love them. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I will get many, many messages once I do a reading. They'll tell you that I'm wrong. Oh no, the moon's not in Capricorn tomorrow. It's actually in Aquarius. Thank you for telling me that. I know where you think it is, but I'm telling you, when you look at the sky, it's actually in Capricorn tonight for the full moon.
I love it. I've met all of those.
Yeah. So they're out there, and we love them just like we love everybody. This is actually a science that's given a condition of pareidolia. And pareidolia is the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual, so that one detects an object, a pattern, or a meaning where there is none. Pareidolia is a sort of a subclinical version of apophenia. Now, common examples include perceived images of animals, faces, objects in cloud formations, seeing faces in inanimate objects, lunar pareidolia, like the man on the moon or the moon rabbit. And so the concept of pareidolia, when pathologic, can extend to include hidden messages in recorded music, played in reverse at higher or lower than normal speeds, and hearing voices or music in random noise. Now, I can tell you guys that I have all of these conditions. I see patterns everywhere, and I don't think it's a sign of insanity. I think it's a sign of higher intelligence and a willingness to see the connections that have always been there. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, the medical community has diagnosed those with an intense version of pareidolia called apophenia, which is almost schizophrenia, and it is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things, like unmotivated seeing of connections by a specific feeling or abnormal meaningfulness, early stages of delusional thought as self-referential over-interpretations of actual sensory perceptions as opposed to hallucinations. So it's that intuition, that gut feeling that we get when there's a connection, that they're actually calling it to be some sort of mental condition. But I would say no. I would say it's not. I would say it's actually a sign that you're smarter than most if you can see these patterns. And I mean, really, if you look at what these constellations are, you could give them any name. So quite frankly, the name doesn't matter to me, except that our collective psychology has given a name to Gemini, right? These 2 people standing together, the twins, Castor and Pollux, the duality. So there's an archetypal energy that's very ancient in our memories and in our DNA that you could call a party or you could call Gemini, but nevertheless, that energy still exists there. Mm-hmm. So this would be sort of a prime example of pareidolia. So here's a comment that I had gotten. Don't you find that when your patients find that you're a believer and practitioner of all this pseudoscientific stuff, that you tend to lose credibility among thinking people? And I say, well, okay, let me go ahead and it seemed like it was out of curiosity, maybe a little bit of a poke, but I figured since they weren't rude, let me go ahead and respond to that. So I said, your question seems to stem not from a place of curiosity or quest for knowledge, but from a place of fear and closed-mindedness. However, I will answer your question for the benefit of others who may stumble upon your query. And I find that credibility is earned through integrity, through results, and the ability to think beyond rigid frameworks. Mm-hmm. So being scientific does not require rejecting ancient wisdom. It requires the courage to question assumptions. In fact, astrology was once a foundational component of medicine. I told you guys this at the beginning. So no, I do not lose credibility among thinking people, only among those who confuse skepticism with intelligence and mistake rigidity for reason. So my patients and my clients, who are sometimes both, value the blend of grounded clinical care and expansive thought. And that's what real healing asks of us. So if you're already, and this is slide 13, by the way. So if you're already kind of closed-minded about looking up at the sky and doing astrology with the actual sky, it's probably because of a deep ingrained programming that you have, that you're probably unconscious to. If you can at least just question it, just look into it, and then decide that it's not for you, then all power to you, and that's what you choose. So a lot of people will then, why did it get so confusing? Why did it separate? So around 200, 400 of the current era, our Roman Catholic Church took power. The Council of Nicaea codified the Bible into 4 books: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, East, West, North, and South. And astrology is now sinful. And Ptolemy, at the same time as the 4 books of the Bible came out, Ptolemy codified astrology in the book Tetrabiblios. So it seems sort of interesting to me that there's this syncretism between the 4 books that Ptolemy wrote and the 4 books that the Council of Nicaea wrote, almost as if the Bible is a way to get the sinful, the heretics out of astrology and into the realm of the teachings of the church. Here, it's very similar to your astrology. And in fact, if you go through the entire Bible in theological lens, you will see a lot of references to the animals of the zodiac.
Yeah.
So practicing actual astrology instead of Bible labeled you a heretic. And so astrology had to go underground. And this is where the mathematics of it became the simplicity of it. It was easy to take this circle divided by 12 to represent the sacred knowledge we were trying to preserve. The left cardinal point here on this cross became the first day of spring around, March 20th or so. This was the beginning of the solar year. And in fact, 2000 years ago, the sun was in Aries on March 21st. It absolutely was. If you had a night sky app 2000 years ago and you pointed it at the sky, at the sun, you would see it in the constellation of Aries. Not so now, because of precession of the equinox, which I'll get into in a second. So we follow the sun, the sun, the son through the seasons of life and counterclockwise. So the Bible gave us the hero's journey that we're all following when we follow this counterclockwise approach to the zodiac. And then all of a sudden, we stopped looking up. We stopped watching the way the Mayans did, the way the Egyptians did. Precession has been ignored for over 2,000 years. And the consequence of the first day of spring, that equinox moving clockwise 1 degree every 72 years for centuries, means that we are off about 24 degrees, like you mentioned, David. And also on top of that, the constellations are not evenly sized. So degrees measure distance. And with the tropical zodiac, we assign 30 degrees to every single one of these archetypes, when in fact, Virgo is 48 degrees. And I think Cancer is like 18 degrees and Aries is like 6. They're much smaller.
I love that Scorpio and Ophicus are 13 degrees each as well.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So in 1930, the International Astronomy Union, the IAU, officially recognized Ophicus as one of the 88 constellations and marked its position along the sun's path, meaning that because it is on the sun's ecliptic, which is why we care about the zodiac constellations. Why don't we work with all 88? Well, some people do, but if you're only focusing on the zodiac, these are the constellations that the sun touches through its yearly journey, and it in fact touches the foot of Ophicus. And trailblazers have been quietly studying the energy of Ophicus ever since. So if we look at the sky, year 1, on March 24th. So this is when the first spring equinox that we can recall. This is where the sun was. It was at the very end of the quote unquote age of Aries, and we started the age of Pisces. So we were right here. That's where the sun was. And if you look to today, the sun is here on the exact same day. Do you see the difference?
On the other side of Pisces.
Yes. So if we go here, oops, let me go back again. So if we here and then to here,
Yeah.
Same day,
Mhm.
2,000 years later.
Mhm.
It's huge. It's 24 degrees.
Yeah.
The Julian calendar was in use at the time of year one, and it was introduced by Julius Caesar. So around 1 CE, the March equinox was likely occurring around the 23rd or 24th, and it was at the very end of Aries, the beginning of Pisces. So the church adopted this date as the official date of the spring equinox for determining the date of Easter. And this is all based on astronomy, you guys. It's literally after the equinox, that first full moon or new moon. I don't even remember how they pick Easter, but it is related to the lunar cycles. So tropical astrology then later adopted March 21st as the fixed entry into Aries, even though precession has caused the actual equinox point to drift nearly a full sign earlier. So it's now in Pisces, which is why we're actually calling ourselves in the age of Aquarius. Because when you look to the eastern sky on the spring equinox, the constellation that you'll see in the heliacal rising position is Aquarius. We're just at the very last degrees of Pisces for this spring equinox. So there it is again. So what do we know so far? We know astrology is as old as astronomy. The tropical Western zodiac was created around 2,000, 2,500 years ago. And due to the geopolitical religious climate, it became disconnected from the stars about 1,500 years ago. There are actually 13 signs along the ecliptic instead of 12, and the constellations are not evenly sized. In other words, they're not all 30 degrees, and precession has occurred, and we have not evolved with the cosmos. And this lack of evolution that we have ignored over 2,000 years is, I believe, the prime reason why we are not connected as a collective, why there's a dissonance, why we feel like we're stuck in loops, because we're doing it over and over again without evolving. So I want to show you another example, and this has to do with Egyptian cosmology. So on the summer solstice, which solstice means the sun stands still, they were observing the heliacal rising of star Sirius. 2,000 years later, the heliacal rising of Sirius is now in August, and you're in a very different position. Right now, it's between Taurus and Gemini, where 2,000 years ago, it was between Gemini and Cancer. You see that?
Yeah.
So the solstices also precess along with the equinox. All the cardinal angles, the two solstices and the two equinoxes, all of them have precessed 24 degrees. And this culture rose and fell with the heliacal rising of Sirius. So as their solstice drifted farther and farther back, or farther and farther clockwise along the zodiacs, you see it transitioned from this cusp of Cancer and Gemini to the cusp of Gemini and Taurus. As that drift happened, the rising of star Sirius happened later and later and later, when in fact the solstice was when they marked the flood season. So they stopped seeing Sirius as the warning light for the flooding. And as a consequence, their civilization fell. And there's hundreds of other examples in history of civilizations rising and falling with certain cosmological alignments. They evolved with the equinoxes and the precessions. And then here's, I think, what's going to be your favorite part of this presentation.
Good.
The Mayans predicted the age that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And the last large epicycle ended in 2012. They warned us that when the sky changes, civilization changes. So what they would see before dawn during their winter solstice in the northern hemisphere was this alignment, this sun standing still, the sun being eaten, disappearing right before it comes back, became closer and closer to the galactic center. Okay. And I'll show you some charts.
Let me share something exciting here. So
okay.
I'm doing a course on archaeoastronomy, and yesterday I had a big realization. So I can now go onto the sites and see where the sun was at any given point, right? And see what sites are aligned to what. And yesterday I saw that for the day out of time, which is the 25th of July, the temple of Quetzalcoatl, which is in Teotihuacan, is exactly aligned to Sirius coming out. So you see it just at the same time as the sun. The sun, it's exactly parallel on the horizon.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. It's like a whole clock. The temple of the sun, the temple of the moon, and the temple of Quetzalcoatl are exactly aligned on certain days to see the sun or even Orion and Sirius come up on the horizon. It's absolutely amazing.
100%. These megalithic structures that were built in the ancient times were clocks that were supposed to keep time for us, and that's precisely what they're doing. So if you look at this winter solstice for the Mayans, do you see where the sun is? It's between Capricorn and Sagittarius. This was year one. I can't go with the web-based version of Stellarium. I can't go back to the actual time when they were around, but you can see that it's nowhere near the galactic center. Whereas if we go to now, the last solstice we had, do you see that? It's right there.
Yeah. Wow.
So our winter solstice aligned, and our summer solstice align with the ecliptic of the galaxy. And this is what the Mayans were predicting. They were saying when the sun is about to disappear and be swallowed into the earth and be swallowed into Shilbalba and the void, it will align with the galactic center in this year, 2012, whatever they, that's what they predicted. And that's why their calendar ended when it did, because it's smack dab right there. Right. So you can see the difference here between these two time frames. Even the solstices move. And this is why this is a little bit of astronomy, so you can understand why they were concerned with the movement of the sun, and why the solstice is, I think, at least astronomy theology, not astro, the 12 archetypes, but in astronomical theology, the sun would go up and down throughout the year. And when you watch the cycle of the sun, it creates a spiral. So on the summer solstice, it's way up here. It spirals every day, and then it spirals down into the winter solstice, and then it spirals back up. So this is what you would look like. This is what it would look like from this person's perspective who's standing on Earth. They would see the spiral of the sun, disappearing, spiraling downward, and then spiraling back up. Yeah. This is why we see spirals everywhere in petroglyphs in the Mesoamericas, because this is what they were observing. So the 12/21/2012 ended the 13th back tune of the Mayan long count calendar. The perfection of the galactic center aligning with the sun during the December solstice. This alignment occurs over 26,000 years, and they anticipated this alignment over 5,000 years ago. And here we are, right in the middle of it, at the changing of the ages, and certain souls are waking up right in time to bring back this wisdom. And I think you guys are a big part of that. I think Athena is a big part of that. Hopefully I'm on this train as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The book, Mayan Cosmogenesis, written by John Major Jenkins, says around the year 2012, a large chapter in human history will be coming to an end. All the values and the assumptions of the previous world age will expire, and a new phase of human growth will commence. And I think he was spot on with that. So let me talk to you briefly about who Ophicus is and how do we incorporate this energy into our zodiac. Well, we call him the serpent bearer. He's the archetype of the ascended masters. He's the wounded healer, and it's the golden gate. It's the galactic center. So on one side of your zodiac, between Ophicus and Sagittarius, you have the golden gate, and on the other side, between Taurus and Gemini, you have the silver gate where Orion is, and you have Orion and Ophicus as mirrors to one another in the sky. Asclepius was a demigod, son of Apollo, learned the healing arts through Chiron, who we actually, as a consensus, basically decided that Chiron rules Ophicus. And if you look, 33 is right here, another ascended master number. He whispered wisdom of the snake through channeled visions, channeled wisdom. He excelled in healing. He could even bring people back from the dead, and this got him killed, and he was deified after death. So it's rising from your mortal death.
Right.
Imhotep was another figure who can be associated with the serpent bearer, and this is the one who comes in peace. He was the son of Ta and of a mortal woman. So again, you're getting the story of part God, part human. This is very important for the energy of Ophicus. It shows you that, yes, while you are physical, you are also deified. Imhotep was a physician, a sage, an architect, basically a polymath, a government official. There's much less documentation and more mythology about Imhotep than there is actual, like, Imhotep did this or this. But he was also deified after death and is equated with the character Thoth. And then we have Christ of Judea. You can also see here for those who follow the Bible, Ophicus is the Christ character, a virgin birth, the Son of God. Again, it's that deified human. He was a carpenter, a sage, a wisdom teacher, performed miracles and reanimated Lazarus. He was crucified, died, and ascended. So that story of going through the mortal death, shedding your coils and rising and ascending, is the key archetype of Ophicus energy, and we completely leave it out. And then, of course, we have Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. This is another immaculate conception through deities, plant medicine, the death and resurrection. I know you're into the plant medicine, David. What we talked about the other day was just mind blowing about the dieta with all the different plants. Yeah, I always thought the dieta was with the psychedelics, but you can do it with any plant. You can do it with dandelions or anything that has a spirit associated with it. So again, the Quetzalcoatl, the Ophicus energy. So it's just to kind of break it up, but I definitely don't have a second date, but at least she knows that her version of astrology was manipulated by a Phoenician sun cult in order to sequester her into a false identity. And I think that's where we are. We stopped looking at the stars. And what I did here for the course, for the class that I taught, was I showed them a tropical chart for the day that I did the class. I said, okay, this is hard for me to look at, but here is the tropical version of the day that we're talking. And I said, I'm going to show you the constellational version because it's got all the 12 signs. They're perfectly even. The planets are precisely where they're supposed to be according to the tropical astrology. But if we take a look at where things are, like let's take the bigger planets, for example, or the slower moving planets. Everyone is saying that Pluto's in Aquarius right now. But is Pluto really in Aquarius? Are we ready to really dive deep into the truth of the new age? Or do you think we might have a little bit of work to do in our 3D reality before we can really embrace that, what that might mean for us?
Yeah.
Pluto, if you look in the sky, is actually not here in Aquarius. It's between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And that's been a big red pill for quite a few people to realize that Pluto is not where they say it is. We are nowhere near this will actually happen in 2040.
Yeah.
That's when Pluto will be at the cusp of Aquarius. And so I think in the next 15 years, we have a lot of work to do, destroying and rebuilding the structures that, that's Capricorn energy. It's foundations. It's striving for your highest achievement. We are in such a sad place with the way that our 3D world is running right now. Pluto's transit through Sagittarius destroyed our inherent beliefs about big religion, big school, big medicine, big corporations.
And as in general.
Yeah. And as a result of that, all of the disenfranchisement with global structures are going to be destroyed as Pluto transits through the energy of Capricorn. And then once we're in 2040, then we'll be ready to embrace that new age energy. At least that's my opinion. So no, we're not there. Another one I want to talk about is Neptune, and they're conjunct now in Aries in the tropical system. But they're not actually in Aries, right? Neptune won't be in Aries until 2040 also. Neptune is still in Pisces. Because if you look right here
I mean, Dani, when we're looking at these planets in a different way, first of all, they can affect us personally, and also perhaps more in terms of the so-called ascension process. It's going to change how our reality looks in the external world, because if Pluto isn't in Aquarius and Neptune and Saturn are conjuncting but not in the sign of Aries but of Pisces, those have quite different intonations and implications than what the Western astrology gives us. And feeling into this, it feels like I agree that we've suddenly had the energy of Aquarius come quickly, almost in the case of particularly what people might call artificial intelligence, in the space of about 8 to 9 months. And suddenly it's upon us, and people are really not ready for it, because we can see all kinds of things happening now, just simply because there isn't the evolution taking place that is necessary to understand the pitfalls of artificial intelligence. And that's just one aspect. But if we go to another one, which is Uranus having moved into Gemini in the Western astrology, I think you talked about that with us before. That feels similar. Suddenly we've got the onset of even more information, but with a Uranian influence in the sign of Gemini, which to me would feel a lot like information overload on some levels, which isn't really what people I perceive need right now. In fact, if anything, most people probably would say they need to have less information coming at them because it's a deluge. But with
100%. And
right,
it's so funny that you brought that up,
yeah.
because this is the exact point where I address that. I address, so like, what if the stars we look to for guidance have not changed, but the maps that we use to find them have?
Right, exactly.
Right. So this is what I said. I actually wrote a blog post on May 24th. Many will declare that Saturn is entering Aries, that it's time to initiate, that it's time to move forward, to build something bold. But if you walk outside and look up, Saturn is nowhere near Aries. And so what are we reading here? What are we creating? And I wondered, like, how many people are trying to start something new because they were told it's time to initiate.
Right.
They think Saturn has moved into Aries, but Saturn's not ready to build. He's not in that armor. He's not taking action. He's still in Pisces with Neptune, letting go, dissolving, asking the deeper questions that Pisces brings to the table. What is real? What is worth holding on to? What needs to be grieved before it can be rebuilt? So precisely to what you said, same thing with Uranus moving through Gemini. When we act out of season, things fall apart. Yeah. When we plant a seed in frozen soil, it doesn't bloom. And when we try to structure something while Saturn is still swimming in the waters of spirit and surrender, we get spiritual burnout disguised as ambition.
So what it feels like is that it has disconnected us from our manifestation powers because we're out of sync, we're misaligned. But once we jump into the real flow and the real sky and the real flow of time, that's when we can actually manifest and grow and flourish like the plants do and nature does, because they are really connected to it.
100%. I mean, you look at a tree. David and I were talking about this on Tuesday. You look at a tree, it's the perfect spiritual, physical organism, right? It just is what it is. And it thrives, it lives, it breathes, it communes, and it doesn't need anything. Right? Like, that's literally what we could be. And I did this as well, as Uranus really in Taurus. But there's an easier way to do this. You can just look up at the sky. You can see where things are. Tropical is still accurate in some ways. Like I said before, the moon phase, the conjunctions and the other aspects with the planets are all exactly the same. I created this little table for people because a lot of people are like, oh, you do Vedic. That's really cool. I'm like, no, I don't do Vedic. I don't do Nashakras. I don't do Navamshas. I don't do any of that stuff. While I like Vedic, and I think it's also very accurate, they are aligned with the equinoxes. So in other words, their March 21st does start in Pisces, but their signs are still 30 degrees. And a lot of times they don't include Ophicus.
Right.
So if you want to, have something accurate and precise, you probably want to look at this 13 sign Western astrology, because the difference between precision and accuracy is huge.
Yeah.
Like, if you're precise, but you're not accurate, this would be tropical astrology or Vedic astrology, meaning they get it, but it's off the mark.
Yeah.
Right. They're spooky accurate or spooky precise sometimes, but not accurate. And then you can have accuracy, but it's not quite right. Where you're kind of in the bullseye range, but it's not a tight grouping. And then this would be just using the calendar months to help you decide what you should do, like the 8-8 Lionsgate, just because it's a date. So this would be something that lacks precision and accuracy, even though 8-8 does happen to align with the sun's transition into Leo and the full moon. This time 8-8 is a portal, but for the most time, if you have 3-3 or 2-2 or whatever, it's not really an energetic portal, so to speak.
Right.
And then this would be true sky constellational astrology. It's precise and it's accurate.
Love it.
So does that mean that we have to live through Pluto going through Capricorn? It felt pretty difficult first time around.
This time it should feel good. It should feel powerful, because Pluto is not your enemy. Pluto, I always describe Pluto as it destroys the egoic energy that is within that archetype. Yeah. So what's the ego energy in Capricorn? That's, I'm the boss. I'm in charge. I know what's right and wrong. I know how to walk this path. Whereas if you're walking that path through Capricorn, you will very soon, very quickly be knocked down. Like, no, there's many paths up the mountain. There's many ways to build structures that reach the same goal. So, and I put this disclaimer in there because, you know, we are making fun of tropical a little, but I do come in peace, you know, whatever it is that you want to study, it's completely up to you. I don't hate tropical astrology. I think it's useful. I think it's been helpful in the previous age that we've been through to preserve the knowledge of the archetypes that have been lost to us.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, you're a sovereign spiritual being, right? If you've been practicing constellational for astrology for a while, and you guys are in that camp, a lot, I've had people come to me and say, oh my God, I've been not serving my clients the way that I should have been. I was like, no, you have been. You've been using the tools that were available to you in your awareness. And it's not the astrology, it's the astrologer that matters. And so if you're someone that reads tropical astrology and you want to dive into this, there's no need to kick yourself. You're just opening your awareness to a brand new tool that can actually free you and your clients in a big way. And so then I said, okay, let me take away the tropical and show you the constellational chart so you can see the difference. It's still astrology. The angles are still the same. We're still working with, you know, the same archetypes. It's just shifted a little.
Yeah.
And but the shift is huge. And I think the sooner we do it, like if we're doing it now, the easier it will be. I think if we're still doing tropical astrology 300 years from now, we'll be completely off. Because we'll be an entire sign off. None of it will match.
Can you touch a little bit there on the galactic center and Ophicus being,
of course,
like, that's an exciting part on why I feel people should pay more attention to it.
Yes, except I want to take you through a new hero's journey because it culminates here. This galactic center is really, really important, and it culminates here. It's the end and the beginning of the hero's journey. You guys are asking just the right questions that are actually in line with how I laid this presentation out. So I love this feedback. Wonderful. Many of us already know this hero's journey. You guys have seen it before. If any of you have studied, what's his name? I see Campbell. This is Campbell's hero's journey, right? The call to adventure, the supernatural aid, the death in the abyss, the transformation, and then the return with the elixir. This is the typical hero's journey. You're going to see this in every show, every good movie that's out there. It's also in our zodiac. And it goes counterclockwise from Aries to Pisces. So you go from Aries to Taurus to Gemini to Cancer to etc., all the way around. And then you die in Pisces, and then you're reborn in Aries, and you go all the way around. And this is basing it off of that spring equinox alignment, which is off. It's not even there anymore. But what we have now is we have our solstices aligned with this galactic portal. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, you have winter solstice here with the sun here, and you have your summer solstice here. If you're in the southern hemisphere, your summer solstice is here and your winter solstice is here. But in any case, you have the Milky Way like going across our zodiac like so. And this represents a two-dimensional slice of our three-dimensional stellosphere and ecliptic. So these two make a cross in the sky on both sides. On one side, you have Ophicus, the serpent bearer, and then on the other side, you've got Orion with his belt and his sword. And they're mirror. This represents the mortal man, and this represents the creator God man. This man is constantly chasing the rabbit, which is underneath of the zodiac, looping around over and over. While this one realizes that the portal is out. So for me, my cosmology, the one that I developed for this so that it makes sense, so that we can use it in this day and age, is that it all starts here with the galactic center. This alignment of our solstices, the highest sun or the lowest sun along this galactic plane, points to me that this is a very important time in our collective's cosmology. We may realign with the equinoxes at some point, but right now we are aligned with the galaxy.
Yeah.
So we're born here. We're born in Scorpio. And this is the first death. This is when, if you imagine your soul as one with the creator, one with source, part of the collective oversoul, this is the moment where you separate and you individuate. This is the fallen angel energy. This is painful for a soul because you know about the creator, but you also know that you're separate from the creator. And you have to go down. You have to dive down. You have to dive into the inverted mirror that is our realm to become an embodied soul here. And your embodiment doesn't even start there. And we're going clockwise too. We're moving this way now against the grain of karma or with it. I don't know. Seems like it's an easier flow. You're still a soul. You're down here now. But here in Libra, this is where you get to balance your karma. What have I done here before? What do I want my life to look like? Who's the tribe I'm going to connect with while I'm here? And that's what you do pre-incarnation. Then Virgo, the birthing mother sky goddess, is the house of your gestation. It's where you're created. It's where you become. It's where you go from spirit into matter through the pregnancy of your own mother. So this is further differentiation. Your soul becomes more and more tethered into the physical body the closer you get to Leo energy. And then this is the moment of birth right here. So now you're an embodied soul. And Leo is children. Leo is joy. It's literally identifying with like, if you think of little kids, they just play. They don't even care. They know they're going to get their next food. They know that they're going to have a comfortable place to sleep, at any rate, in the perfect scenario. But this is where childhood happens. And this is where you maybe still have some of your abilities. Maybe you can still see spirits and orbs. And as you grow, as you mature, then your emotional imprinting takes place in Cancer. This is the second death, because here you're disconnected once again from those abilities. Unless you have very nurturing caregivers that are also spiritual and allow you to, pursue those fantasies of your make-believe friends and all of that. Unless you have that kind of environment, most of us don't. We grow up and say, that's imaginary, you need to be serious. And that's where all this happens. Gemini is more like our schooling phase. It's where we get deep subconscious programmings about what's right and wrong, right? And anything that's programmed in Gemini usually sticks with us and are the hardest programs to break.
Yeah.
Then as we move into Taurus energy, we're experiencing life. We're tasting, we're touching, we're smelling, we're feeling, we're deciding what we want to do with our life. We're deciding who we want to partner with, whether or not we want to have kids. All of this happens here. We get to make choices here based on what we feel and what feels good and what feels bad.
Yeah.
Once we know all that, Aries is where we stand individuated. We are the human, fully created in God's image, in Source's image, and we're standing here ready to go, ready to rock and roll. But it's such a short time frame. You don't get to rest on your laurels here for long, because that's when you're primed for your dark night of the soul or your spiritual awakening. And this is where people lose their faith. This is where people lose their connection to source, because they realize that the duality is you've got to go deep inward to know who you are, because you've had all this externalized programming building up into you. And so a lot of times it can be the spiritual awakening, the great awakening, the dark night of the soul. There's two paths you can go here. One is, okay, I'm going to reconnect with source. I'm going to realize my true mission here as a spirit. Or you fall back into the old patterning, you develop health problems, and then you spiral into your physical death and you repeat the loop again. And that's okay, because time isn't real and you're not really running out of time. But if you can knock into that great awakening, if you can really understand and go deep within, deep into the waters beneath the surface of your own soul, then you emerge into your Aquarian phase of your life, where you meet others like you that have gone through the same similar process. It's called your soul tribe. Many times that soul tribe is not part of your organic tribe that you grew up in. But if it is, you're even better. You're lucky. If not, then you have to go on a journey to find those souls. And Capricorn's where you build and where you reach the mountain of true enlightenment. And then Sagittarius is heaven on earth. It's like, it always reminds me of Dorothy. If you remember that story, Wizard of Oz, she got the shoes in the beginning of the movie, meaning that her powers were with her the entire time. But the point of the story was you had to go through that journey, Dorothy, in order to really appreciate that you could click your heels and go home immediately. So the idea is that you choose when you die, and that your death is the last ecstatic experience that you have as a physical birth, and you remember when you die. And that's Ophicus. That's the ascension process. So you don't have to come back. You get a choice with this cosmology. And that's what I outline in the center of the book.
Yeah.
So,
love it. You know,
yeah, so that,
and it's like, with all of this way of looking at astrology, I'm so excited to go back into it and even deeper. It's like, it feels absolutely right. And it makes so much sense at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just processing quite a bit of that information.
it's a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've just embarked on the journey of the 13 moons, and the first moon is the bat moon of magnetism. So in the way that you've just described the zodiac, where do you perceive that moon to fall in those 13 signs?
Well, I think energetically, if this is the beginning, this is the birth, this is the begin and a magnetic, I would say Scorpio. I mean, we could certainly experiment with it,
Mm,
and see if the new journey of the 13 moons follows this cosmology pathway. Because I think it's the magnetic moon is first, right? And
Yeah,
then after that is the
as the Scorpio moon,
yeah,
actually.
this is the one.
Scorpion moon.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if you're going to move into Libra after that, get this. So before Rome, Libra was part of Scorpio.
Yes.
Libra was the claws of Scorpio.
Yes.
So, you could call it the Scorpion moon and it would still be, I think, and I don't really think Libra is that sweet of a sign. It's not a sweet sign to me at all. It's one of those signs where there's a lot of reckoning going on.
Yeah.
I always picture the yin and yang. You take that circle and you have that winding path between the two.
Yeah.
And I feel like Libra has to walk that thin line. Like you have to be able to see the light, see the dark, walk that line. And for some archetypes, that's not an easy journey. Because some of our archetypes that we work with, like Venus, for example, loves ecstatic bliss. It's when she's most creative. The orgasm, the death, the inspiration, all of that is literally like, okay, now I can create. And so I don't like her ruling Libra because she can't be ecstatic in Libra. She's got to put on an appropriate dress and look at both sides of the story. And she can't do that. Mercury's better at that because Mercury travels back and forth through the underworld, which is Libra is the gateway between the underworld and the physical. And so Mercury is also the serpent. Mercury is the serpent.
Yes. Yeah. So you put Venus as the ruler of Virgo and yes. Taurus as well?
Yeah, the earth signs, yes.
Wow, that's fascinating. And this is part of the ongoing investigation that we are inviting you into, Dani, and your audience and our audience too, is to see how many of these 13 systems actually do correspond to an overall unified pattern. So as of course with the 13 moons, we're also going to be exploring the 13 Celtic tree calendar, which follows a slightly different pattern again, but in theory, because each of the trees in the Celtic system represent or hold different qualities of which we can all connect to by spending time with them and meditating with them and so on and so forth, there should in theory be some correlation. So we have a number of different activities with our tribe at the moment to investigate all of these, because we have this kind of year-long process now in front of us. It feels like we've all been invited into doing something that is perhaps more meaningful than watching the television right now and hoping that something is going to change in this crazy world, because this system actually empowers us. Working with the 1320 calendar empowers us. It makes every day important. There's no need to time pass a few days here, a week or two until something else happens to keep us in the cycle. We can actually step out every morning and say, hey, well, today is the day of this particular kin and on this tone, and it means that this energy and this sequence is at work. And if I look at the stars, there's also this influence. So what we actually have is a really multifaceted tool or set of tools to work with. Can be as important every day as we want it to be.
Yeah, and taken from different silos, which I like too. And the other thing, remember too, okay, so this cosmology that I developed is channeled. Like I didn't get this from any book. This is an idea that came to me by trying to understand the deep impact of this part of the sky and what that means for us right now. Now, when you take the 13 moons, if you take the 13 trees, perhaps they're already aligned to the equinoxes, but maybe you're led to realign them to the solstices, in which case that could be something that can be used for whatever age we're getting ready to go into. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And that's a really fascinating point, because a lot of the Celtic or Norse medicine wheels or ways of understanding things are very seasonal based, because they were so focused into the earth. But of course, with the precessional cycle, that has slipped also. And as somebody who loves the garden, I kind of noticed that spring doesn't really start when it's meant to. Summer doesn't really exist anymore, apparently. It's just a crazy swing of heat to water to heat to water and everything else in between, certainly in Britain. And so it seems like everything has slipped out. And this feels like a moment where we have the opportunity to say, actually, you know what? Let's empower ourselves by looking to the original source of the energy rather than offsetting it by 24 degrees, which at best places us sometime into the future to handle things that we haven't really got ready for.
Right.
It
I
doesn't seem
think
like a very logical way of doing it.
yeah. I mean, as cosmic beings, we are no longer bolt and bolt are holden to the seasons anymore, right?
Right.
Um we're more so the celestial seasons, right? So, is the I think the solstices are good points. Equinoxes, to me, you really can't necessarily pinpoint that day unless you have, and this is how the ancients did it, that you can't pinpoint it unless you have accurate like maps and calculations. But the solstice, when that's happening because the sun stands still. You can watch the sun stop at the top and you can watch the sun stop at the bottom. And to me, this is the cosmic pattern. This is the cosmic breath in and out. And I think if those moons align to that breath, if the trees align to that breath, then you can break it a little.
Yeah.
Especially if you know it really well. That's that whole Uranus energy, being in Taurus, embodying it. You get the cosmic downloads. Nothing fits, but if you can somehow do something unique and interesting with the physical world that you're in right now, then that's what Uranus wants you to do, I think.
And I think it's also just a facet of how disconnected from the natural world we've become, because you can get avocados any time of the year, anywhere in the world, right? And they
Right.
don't grow, first of all, everywhere. And there are seasonal reasons why the food comes for us at those times of the year, because we're more adapted to them, they're more suited to us, and so on and so forth. But with the modern capitalist way of doing things, you can have almost any food any time of the year, and so you lose that kind of natural flow that nature gives you. And I remember when I lived in Italy, I was always amazed that there would be like 10 days of chestnut festivals, because there were just that particular time of the year when the chestnut would grow, the supermarkets would be full of them. And then that was it. They're suddenly gone again. And it's just like, okay, if you miss the chestnut festivals, that's it for the next
Gotta
year.
wait till next year. Yep.
Right, and I kind of like that because it brings you more into the present moment and allows you to celebrate and enjoy the seasonal things. So
Mhm.
I think that maybe the 13 sign system is going to potentially offer us a route back to being more in synchronization with nature, which I think is long overdue.
And
So too.
if you don't mind me sharing, Danny, being a self-existent mirror, that's exactly what you've been doing. You've been
Oh, yeah.
bringing the stars to Earth, and you've been doing that, creating a system and a container for all of it. So I love how to see the expression of that archetype with everything that you're doing. And this has been so amazing, so useful.
Right.
We're definitely ready to jump even deeper into all of it. I've got super excited using Stellarium and all of the apps that I've been able to find. So yes, I think we're ready for this new cycle, new way of doing things. It's not so new. It's actually going back.
Right. It's going back. It's going back to the roots for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So if people want to have a session with you, Dani, as we both had, and they really resonated strongly and have given us a really good entry point now to start working with our, for us, it's a new astrology. It's a new us. It's a new time period.
Rebirth.
It's a rebirth, right? And rather than have the ongoing rebirth of being Scorpio every day, it's like, oh, okay, a bit of a break now and chill out with the goddess in the garden, which sounds like a lot more fun. So if people want to come to you for a reading, where can they find you, Dani?
At drdani.com, DRDANI.com.
And you have a YouTube channel as well?
Mm-hmm. At Dr. Dani Astrology, I think is what it is.
Yeah, cool. And we're going to point everybody there if you want to know more about the full moon that is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And you do a weekly or bi-weekly show?
I guess I don't really have a schedule on my YouTube channel. I just kind of go with whatever celestial energies are coming. And then what I typically do is I look at the mundane, meaning the everyday, what's happening in the sky. And I say, what's the lesson? What am I teaching out of here? And sometimes it'll be something really profound and I'll think of, okay, that's a tough message. What's the remedy? And so I'll offer that. sometimes the alignments are just so geometric and connected to things like phi and pi and the fine structure constant and the number 33 that I show the underlying synchronicities as well. And so that's fun for me to kind of show you how, you know, your name or this idea is related to this position due to the numerology that you can take apart with it. So I do that with Venus, because Venus is very, very encoded. Her actual celestial cycles encode the golden ratio, which, you know, if you use that with phi, there's also aspects in astrology, because we use the circle in astrology, right? So you have the circle, and then each cycle is a spiral, which is phi. You put those two together, and those two encode an angle that is the fine structure. It's just so amazing. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
The universe is so beautiful. So I'll do things like that. Sometimes we'll just do a fun Q&A, just whatever comes up.
Cool.
I try to post something about every 5 or 6 days,
Cool.
sometimes sooner.
So please do check out Dani's YouTube channel, everybody, and hit like and subscribe if you like the videos, and please do the same for this one if you found this to be stimulating. And we're doing the away leg fixture with you on Monday, right, Dani?
Yes. You guys will be on my channel on Monday, and we'll be live. So I'm going to ask you guys everything about what you do and your journey to the 13 and just whatever else we end up talking about.
Super happy to collaborate. And thank you for accepting the invitation and everything you've been teaching us, the books and your videos. They are really amazing. And I see a whole new way, the new astrology combined with the number 13 and the new way of measuring the cycles of time with Mayan. I see a whole new way of doing things that realigns us with what we should be doing in New Earth. So thank you for everything you've been doing.
My pleasure.
All right, so a big thank you to Dani for joining us today and giving, I think, a really good foundational overview of how we can step into, if we choose, into living more perhaps in alignment with the stars above, so thus fulfilling the as above, so below part of the whole system. And I would suggest that perhaps at this time, if you're not getting aligned, then you might be having some difficulties trying to make sense of everything. And so I think, Dani, thank you so much for offering us the coherency with the way that you look at this. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And we'll probably, hopefully, see you on Monday on Dani's channel. So until
in Lakesh,
I am another you.